Thanks everybody for joining. We've got some exciting new product announcements to make today from Weaveworks. This is our 2023.04 release, April 2023, time flies. And we've added some really cool new features and capabilities to GitOps Enterprise that we want to tell everybody about. We've also launched a brand new product that we are announcing today and that we'll talk to you about as well. Thanks for joining. Sit tight. We're going to get going right now. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We're using Zoom for this webinar, and you're currently, as an audience member, in listen-only mode. This webinar is being recorded. We are going to share the recording of this webinar out and the slide deck to everybody that signed up to attend this webinar. We're going to have a Q&A session that's going to follow the presentation. So please use the Q&A panel that's in your Zoom menu to submit questions to us. We will strive to answer all of the questions that we can. You can hit escape if you want to exit full screen. Again, slides and recording are going to be shared afterwards. We've also got, I believe, 3 polls that we're going to be doing throughout the webinar today. I'll try and call attention to those when we drop those into the chat, but do please look for those polls. It's always very helpful to get some feedback from you, the most important folks on this webinar, the audience. If you've got any technical issues, there's a link down at the bottom to get some help from Zoom. Hopefully everything works great for you though, and let's dive on in. I'm Joe Dahlquist. I'm VP of Product Marketing at Weaveworks. I've been in product management and product marketing for a little over 20 years. Worked on all sorts of stuff ranging from cybersecurity SaaS software to hardware and firmware, and now cloud native. And I'm joined by James Wilson. James, did you want to say hi to everybody really quick?
Hey, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks for being here.
James is our director of product management and has forgotten more about cloud native than probably most people in the world know. Great to have you join us today, and we're excited to kick this off. If you're not familiar with Weaveworks, we're the GitOps company. We are, number one, deeply, deeply committed to the open source community. And it's likely, if you've been working in cloud native, that you've used some of our technologies and some of our tools. They include things like Flux and Flagger, Weavescope, EKS, CTL, WeaveNet, and others. We love to give it, I guess, pay it forward in the world of cloud native software by creating really valuable solutions that have absolutely $0 price tags that people get to use. We also partner with all the major infrastructure providers, every Kubernetes vendor, all of the cool kids on the block in this space, and have integrations with many of them. So a little bit of background on Weaveworks. We make a product called GitOps Enterprise that is a commercial solution used by enterprise organizations, their application teams, and their platform teams to help them deliver value to the market faster, to build great software and ship it in a really safe, secure, verifiable manner, to help modernize how they're building applications, the tool chains they're using to do it, and where those applications are running, kind of a cloud native journey, so to speak. And ultimately, we want to help companies do more with less, really increase their efficiencies and their productivity levels, and in some cases, shrink the amount of tooling and solutions that they have to wrestle with to get their jobs done. At the end of the day, this is a GitOps automation platform that we've built in GitOps Enterprise, and we're excited to add new features and capabilities to it. There's a lot of companies out there that are using GitOps in some form or another. They range from federal agencies, financial services companies, to technology and telecommunications companies, retail, transportation, you name it. Across the board, this journey to Kubernetes and journey to cloud native is really accelerating, and everybody is a software company these days. They're doing GitOps with Weaveworks, and we encourage you to try the same. Our announcements today are really twofold. Number one, we've got a new product launch. It's called Assured. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Very cool. We've also got 3 exciting new features for our Weave GitOps Enterprise product: pipelines, GitOps Templates, and GitOps Sets. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those features are, why we came up with them, and then James is going to give you a live technical demo of how those work and talk a little bit more about some of the use cases that they solve for. So first, our new product announcement of Assured. If you look at the bottom of the page here, you see that we have a lot of open source solutions. At the very bottom, Flux and Flagger are probably the most popular, most notable open source products that we've got. These are CNCF projects, and in fact, Flux graduated in December and is now a CNCF graduated project, and it brings Flagger along with it. It's got a lot of use, right? There are hundreds of thousands of people out there using Flux and Flagger as their continuous delivery solutions today. On top of that, we've built a platform that adds extensions and a graphical user interface to Flux and Flagger that we call Weave GitOps Open Source. Again, this is completely open source, free to use, supported by a vibrant and growing community. We encourage everybody, if you're using Flux, to take a look at Weave GitOps OSS. You can find that on our website at weave.works. And start using that right away. It extends Flux and allows you to have a great GUI and get a lot more utility out of those free solutions. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, right at the very top of the page, we have Weave GitOps Enterprise. This is our enterprise-grade commercial solution that includes both open source software and closed source software, along with enterprise-grade support, a catalog full of solutions, all of the bells and whistles that you would expect from a commercialized, ready for production at scale solution from Weaveworks. But there was definitely a space for us to do something in between those two, and that's where this new product, Assured, comes into play. Assured provides all the benefits of our open source software, Flux, Flagger, and a number of other extensions, but it adds to that enterprise-grade support that includes hotfixes, rapidly addressed CVEs, bitstream assurance, and enterprise support with SLAs. It also grants access to users to verified profiles and an accelerator catalog that can help you cover ground much faster as you come up to speed in your cloud native journey. Of course, it includes our Assured OSS builds, which are based on Weave GitOps open source. And all of these components and solutions are certified and supported by our team. It is a fantastic step to take if you are reaching the limits of what you're able to accomplish with Flux. Maybe you've got multiple teams, maybe you've got multiple clusters, multiple applications, multiple environments that you need to be able to support, or maybe you need the peace of mind and the confidence of having Weaveworks, the company that built Flux and Flagger, standing behind your operations and supporting you along the way. We encourage you to visit our website, reach out to us and contact us to learn more about all the benefits of Weave GitOps Assured. We think it's going to be a very successful product and solve the challenges that a lot of companies are facing today as they continue to progress in their journey from completely open source into more production-ready solutions. That's Weave GitOps Assured. Next up, 3 exciting new features that we've added to Weave GitOps Enterprise. And the first is pipelines. Pipelines allows you to promote applications reliably with a completely automated release pipeline. Just git push, right? Life doesn't get much easier than that. The next feature that we've added is called GitOps Templates. It allows teams to build workflows, including things like service definitions, creating extensive pipelines, building clusters on demand, and a lot more, and doing it in a highly repeatable, highly visible, and safe way with our GitOps Templates feature. And then the third new capability that we're adding to Weave GitOps Enterprise is GitOps Sets. This is a massive time saving for developers and platform teams. Instead of editing hundreds of files, it allows you to create a single command that can generate a config for multiple infrastructure environments. This literally can turn an entire day's worth of kind of grueling, high toil and complex work into something that's very fast, very simple, and highly repeatable. So we'll dive into these just a little bit deeper to talk about them before we kick over into a live demo of these features where James will give us some background on them as well. So pipelines. So the big headline here, James, is that it boosts developer productivity and helps provide a better developer experience when developers need to promote applications through a release pipeline. And it allows them to push their changes in their dev environment, watch the update roll out across their test, staging and production environments, all from a simple pull request, right? A process that they're very familiar with, or some external process like Jenkins, and have our solution, Weave GitOps Enterprise, orchestrate everything so that there's minimal load on those developers. That sounds like an incredibly helpful feature for both operators and developers. Next up, we'll go a little bit deeper on templates. Templates are this reusable component that platform teams get to leverage to create self-service, autonomy, self-service capabilities for developers, and ultimately remove some of the complexity, toil, and cognitive load that they have to deal with outside of writing, great code, which is, I think, what they'd rather be spending the bulk of their time doing. And templates can define just about everything: services, pipelines, clusters, and they can be used to create all of those resources on demand, but on demand with an element of governance where the platform team can specify what those golden paths and guardrails are for app dev teams so that they can just click the button and move forward with life, right? It removes a lot of the risk and uncertainty. It helps to implement a degree of standardization, safety, security, and compliance so that they can own and stand up the infrastructure that they need and do that quickly and easily, but do it in a way that is consistent across either their team or perhaps the entire organization. And a little deeper dive here on GitOps Sets before we jump into the demo. GitOps Sets enable platform operators to have this single resource, this single source of truth for an application for multiple environments, and even up to a fleet scale of clusters. Where it would normally take a lot of time, a lot of energy, and have room for human errors to be introduced into the creation of these templates over and over and over again to define all of these multiple environments and a wide range of clusters. It can now be done with a single command, and it can be done in a completely consistent way. So it's going to save a lot of times standing up objects like all the Flux primitives and everything that's required to successfully deploy an application, all from a single action, instead of an entire day of hard work and then hoping that everything was done correctly. So with that, I'm excited for James to show off these 3 features that we've added, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of close off on some of the capabilities that these add and some resources that you can take away. We've just launched a poll. I wanted to bring everybody's attention really quickly to the poll that we've got up on who you use as a cloud provider. It's always important for us to understand which environments our customers need support in. Please take a second to answer that question, and we'd appreciate it. And with that, James, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Share my screen here. All right. Awesome. So hi, everyone. James Wilson, as Joe mentioned earlier, Super excited to show you GitOps Enterprise and the new features, pipelines, GitOps Templates, and GitOps Sets. So what you see here is the GitOps Enterprise dashboard, right? And this is your central hub for managing everything from your platform, where you can configure clusters, create and update templates, work with GitOps Sets, deliver infrastructure with Terraform and our Terraform controller, or deliver secrets, as well as delivery with a focus on delivering applications and up-leveling it to progressive delivery, where you could do canary and blue-green rollouts, to guardrails when you're putting your teams, having your teams in workspaces where they can safely work on the same cluster together, along with policies, everything from cluster policies to application policies and infrastructure policies, and making it super easy to configure those. But today we're going to focus on 3 specific areas. And the first area I want to talk about is pipelines. And so you can see here that I'm already on the pipelines list view, and I have a pipeline here on the system. And now when we went to go and create pipelines, there was a particular problem that we wanted to solve, right? And so, you know, your context on your CI system has just one piece, right? And that is the code that you've written and that you are now pushing to your container registry or wherever else you're maintaining your binaries, right? And then you have the other side where you've delivered that code to someplace, whether it's on Kubernetes or some other managed application service, right? And a lot of times those two things can't talk. And even with Flux, which is incredibly powerful, when you go to build that type of system on your own, it's a lot of work. Believe me, we tried it. We tried not to build this feature, and it was just too painful of an experience. So we knew we had to tackle it. And so our pipeline system was really meant to tie all of that context together, right? We want to tie it to your Git repositories alongside knowing how it's being deployed across clusters. And so we built a new pipeline controller in CRD that does just that. And something we wanted to be very mindful of too as we developed this was that you can bring your own CI system and your Git service, right? You don't have to migrate off GitHub Actions or Circle CI or Jenkins if you're using that. And you can use GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, right? We support all the major Git providers as well. And so keep that in mind as I'm going through this product. Now here you can see the pipeline listed here, and it defines 3 separate environments: dev, staging, and production. And well, of course. And so when I go and click on that, after I log in again, that I am taken to a detail screen, which shows me all of the information and context that I need about this particular application deployment, right? I know that dev version 1.36, I know that the dev environment's on version 136 with this number right here, and that staging and production are on the prior version 135, right? I know that this is a fully automated pipeline and that it's using a pull request strategy, which means it's going to be opening pull requests for me on my behalf, and the exact repo that it's interacting with. Now, what happens here? Well, as I go and update and push a new version to dev, what's going to happen is the pipeline controller will go see that that pull request was merged, and it's going to go ahead and update dev. And once dev is green and we get that green check mark, it's going to go ahead and automatically open a pull request for the staging environment. And it's going to go ahead and update the YAML. And now my team can go ahead and, through its normal Git processes, go review the pull request and merge it. And now that's going to be marked green, and then it's going to open a pull request for production. And so you can do whatever compliance things you need to take care of in order to deploy it to production. And then you can merge that pull request and boom, it'll land on production. And what this meant to do is really just take the thought process out of it, right? It's automating a lot of different things. It's updating various pieces of YAML, and all the application developers need to focus on is really just reviewing it. Yes, that's the correct version I want deployed, and hitting merge pull request, and all the rest of the work is done for you. And now something that's really nice about this is, right, this is all declarative and saved in Git, can be saved in Git as well. And so here's a pipeline CRD that you were just looking at. And you can see here that we can define which environments that it's a part of. And you can define also the clusters that it's associated with. So you can deploy to multiple clusters, as well as the promotion strategy. And so here we have it set to automatic, but you could also set it to manual, right? A lot of people want that good feeling of being able to push a button directly from the UI to kick off the next phase of the process. And we provide that capability as well. And so one of the nice features about this too, though, is you know, in this particular one, we're using the notification strategy. And there's a good bit of YAML you need to write to fully set that up and everything. Well, GitOps Enterprise ships with pre-built templates for working with the pipeline system. And if you need something completely custom, you can go and build it yourself. But you can see here that we had created this with the GitOps templating system because I have this edit button here. And so if I come to edit pipeline, it's going and pulling up the template that I used, and it's going to pre-populate the fields with all the data that I'd already inputted for this pipeline. Now, why is this beneficial? Well, number one, you can go and create templates for anything. As long as it's a Kubernetes resource, you can go ahead and do it. Why did we build it this way? Well, you know, a lot of times when you get into that YAML, or if you abstract things away with a Helm chart, it can get very cumbersome to kind of keep context and know what fields need to be updated, which ones don't, which ones shouldn't be touched. And so with this, platform operators, or anyone for that matter, can easily define the values that you want to be editable. And you have a lot of unique fields, right? You can just do text fields. Here I have a drop-down menu where I have 2 predefined values that the user can select. And so it gives you that extra fine-grained control. And when they're done creating this template or updating it, right, they can go ahead with whatever Git provider they're using via GitOps Enterprise. In this case, we're using GitHub, and this will go and automatically open a PR and update that YAML for you. But just to give you some context, right, I'm going to hit the preview PR button here, and it's going to go and show you all of the YAML under the hood that this particular template is generating, right? And so here I have a namespace YAML, I have a customization, I have a Flux provider and alert, I have more namespaces and customizations, right? And so the platform operator had already set up the appropriate labels for all of those things. There's a lot of information that's baked under the hood here, with only specific items from here being able to, that can be edited. Now, something I want to do is, right, I want to come to the template screen here. I'm not going to change the pipeline system right now. And you can see even on this sample environment, all the different types of templates we've created here. So I have different types like cluster, secret, application, pipeline. And I'm going to come down to a RDS template here, which is for creating a sample of our RDS template on AWS. And so I'll come here, use this template, and you can see that I have various empty fields here. And once I go and fill all of these in, I can then go ahead and open that pull request. And once it merges, the Terraform controller will go and deploy a new Aurora database for me. And now coming back over here, here is that same template, and here's the YAML on how it was made, right? And so I have a GitOps template, and then here I'm just defining the parameters that I care about, right? And these parameters are the ones that will appear on the user interface. And then these values are then injected into this resource template below. And so you can see here that I just have a Terraform object, and I'm going ahead and putting those user inputted values into this particular Terraform object. And then the Terraform controller will be able to pick that up and deploy it. Now, one thing that we've also done as well is with our VS Code extension, we have created this UI experience from our GitOps VS Code extension. And so we want to get closer to developers so they don't even need to log into Weave GitOps Enterprise, right? As long as they have access to the templating system, or particular templates, they can go and use it directly from VS Code, fill it in. It will create the YAML on their local working directory, and then they can go and push those changes and open a pull request and merge them. And so it's a really nice workflow that it gets just closer to the developer. And now one final thing I want to touch on this before transitioning over to GitOps Sets is that this is all RBAC controlled as well, right? You have the ability, because these are Kubernetes resources, to be able to control what teams have access to which templates. So if you have a certain set that are really only for application deployments, you can go ahead and make sure the application teams get access to those. If there are some critical infrastructure templates that you only want one particular team to have access to, you can control that via RBAC. And so this introduces a lot of fine-grained control in terms of how it works. Now, this is awesome, right? And one of the things when I showed with the pipeline system was just the number of YAML objects that were created just to get that one piece of functionality working, right? It can be a lot, and we've all been there, right? Kind of creating YAML after YAML, and it just feels chaotic. And quite frankly, I can speak from my own personal experience. I can go cross-eyed with the amount of YAML that I can write sometimes. And so we really want to solve that problem. And that's why we're introducing GitOps Sets as well. Now, what does GitOps Sets do? It's a way to use data to dynamically drive the configuration of your clusters. And so what do I mean by that? Well, let's use a simple example here. So here I have a GitOps set, and I have a generator that's called a list generator. And all it does, it lets me just produce a list of items that I care about with unique values. And so here I have just a field called name. And then below that, I have a template for a namespace. And I'm injecting this name variable down into this namespace. And so what's the GitOps controller going to do for me? Well, it's going to create 5 namespace objects for me, and it's going to inject each one of these into each one of those objects. And so what's nice is if I need to create a new namespace, instead of creating a whole new namespace YAML object, a new YAML file, I can just go and append to this list, and then it will dynamically add new ones. And if I want to get rid of these 2, I can go ahead and delete it. And when I push and merge to my cluster, it will go ahead and delete those. And now this is a really basic example, right? We have a ton of different generators that you can use and configure, right? We have an API generator, which lets you hit an API endpoint, and you can then inject that data into your configuration. And so here's a GitOps set where we're getting the weather from Berlin, and then we're injecting the color of that into this application. It will change the application background based on the weather in Berlin, or you could get more serious, right? Here's one with a pull request generator. Now, what's this one doing? It's going to your Git repository and it's seeing what open pull requests there are. And then you can take that pull request data and inject it into objects below. And in this instance, what we're doing is we're injecting it into Flux objects to create ephemeral preview environments that code reviewers and quality engineers can use on a day-to-day workflow. And so if I come to GitOps Sets in our dashboard and come to the pull request pod info, I can see here that I have workloads based on open pull requests on my Git repository. And then even further, leveraging our metadata system, I can go and append custom metadata onto each of these workflows. And in this particular instance, I have the app URL here for the deployed microservice. And so if I was a quality engineer, I could go ahead and click on it. I can go ahead, use the service or the new application, verify the changes are good, and then approve the pull request. And when that pull request is finally merged or closed, this pull request generator will automatically clean up these pull request environments. And then when the next one opens up, it will go ahead and deploy that. And so you can start to see here how powerful and flexible these can really be. Going back to the API generator, maybe you have some MySQL data, some data on a database somewhere on your cloud provider, and you just create a cloud function endpoint, right? You can go ahead, use the API generator to hit that endpoint, and then inject that data to configure your cluster. And now one final piece is, right, we are the company that created Flux. We have a lot of expertise in that area. And as we're building all of these controllers, we are learning and taking those lessons learned from building those Flux controllers and making sure that we put all of the same features and security into these new controllers. And now that earlier example I showed you of the namespace GitOps Sets, well, here I went ahead and tried to deploy it, but I wasn't allowed to. And that's because the service account that's driving the GitOps Sets controller does not have the permission to just go ahead and create any object, right? And in this particular instance, it does not have privileges to deploy namespaces. And so it blocked it and it didn't allow them to be deployed. And you can add even extra layers of security by leveraging our policy system and tying policies to these GitOps sets as well. And so again, just really flexible, trusted application delivery. So that was a very fast overview of pipelines, templates, and GitOps sets. I really hope you enjoyed it. The team is super excited to keep building these out. We have a lot of new ideas for generators for GitOps sets. And thank you. Joe?
Thanks, James. That was awesome. I mean, it's obvious to me and probably everybody on the call just how much of a time-saving, simplification, and help with just staying sane while trying to work with all of these moving pieces that these features really provide to people that are using it hands-on. Thank you very much for that. We've got another poll that's come up here asking about what continuous delivery tools you guys use out there in the wild. We would love to know the answer to that. When you get a chance, please do answer. And we'll jump right back really quickly into the slide deck just to wrap this up. Give me one moment as we do that. Let's try this again. Oh, and we have our third and final poll as well coming up. Thank you in the background there. Last one that we're going to ask you guys to answer for us, but it is very helpful, as I mentioned before, and your answers are super appreciated. So, all right, back into this for just a moment. We've done our demo. You've gotten to see all of those new features. Just to recap really quickly, we've launched Assured, which is a new commercial supported solution for people that are using Flux and Flagger. And we've added some new features, pipelines, templates, and sets to Weave GitOps Enterprise. I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have 3 really cool products. Our open source Weave GitOps platform, our Weave GitOps Assured, which is brand new, Weave GitOps Enterprise, which is all the bells and whistles and really built for enterprise organizations that have multiple teams, multiple clusters, multiple apps, and in some cases, multiple cloud environments as well. Really helps them go faster and increase the productivity of their teams. We've got a new poll that just came up too. How many clusters are you guys running? The winner with the most clusters gets the eternal, best wishes and hopes from James for having to deal with the most clusters. Appreciate you guys answering that poll in advance. Thanks again. And last but not least, we're ready to take some questions from you guys. We did see a couple of them come up in the chat. I'm going to pull those up now. Give me just a moment and we'll run through them. All right, first question was from Girish, and it was, all these features are available only in Weave Enterprise, or is it available as a Flux open source project? That was a question that was echoed by Vladimir as well, who was asking what's the timeline for open sourcing pipelines, templates, and sets. And the answer is these are Weave GitOps Enterprise only features. Currently, there is no timeline right now for open sourcing pipelines, templates, or sets. However, if that's something that changes, you will absolutely find out because we will be announcing it loudly and frequently. There is another question here from Kenneth that asked about a doc linked above, marking the feature as alpha or suitable in controlled testing environments, but maybe not yet recommended for production. I believe that's GitOps Sets, which is currently in preview. Is that correct, James?
It may have been for pipelines too. So
okay.
Pipelines works really, really well, for that single environment. It is alpha more so because there are quite a few features that we are planning on adding, such as being able to roll out multiple applications at once and making sure those are choreographed for more of a fleet rollout, which might include some changes to the data model. But the team has done a really great job in terms of making sure that they're production ready. As well, GitOps Sets is definitely, we have a few customers that are already using it in production. So it's, yes, it's relatively new, but at the same time, the team is moving really fast to make sure, fast and safely, to make sure that, it's secure and can scale and work properly.
Excellent. And Vladimir is inviting us to have a deeper conversation about how they're tackling some of the similar problems using Flux and GitHub Actions, which would be fantastic. And we'll take you up on your offer to talk a little bit more deeply about that. Grish asks that some of these features have similarity with features of the Argo project. Why should we use GitOps Enterprise instead of Argo project? And I think certainly from my standpoint, Weave GitOps Enterprise is about a lot more than just the 3 features that you saw here today. And I think that comparing those directly to Argo CD is probably not exactly the right comparison. We know that there are a number of commercial solutions that have built on top of Argo, ranging from Acuity to CodeFresh and others. I think that would be probably a better comparison and probably one that would take more time than we've got to work with this afternoon. But Girish, we invite you to reach out to us, and we'd love to have a technical conversation with you to really, dig deep in the comparison between those. We think that Argo is a great solution. We think that Flux is a great solution. And I think there is enough differences between them that depending on what your needs are, how your team likes to work, that you will find one works a little bit better for you than the other. But if it were as simple as one being vastly better than the other, I think we wouldn't see the adoption numbers that we see for both, right? So both have massive user bases, and I think there's a lot of great information out there where people have shared their thoughts on why they're using Flux over Argo. So yeah, we're happy to dig into that a little bit deeper with you as well. Looking to see if we've got some other questions here yet.
There was one from Vladimir, which I did not address. How GitOps sets scale with overriding multiple, potentially dozens of settings for 10 plus clusters. So GitOps sets can be used in 2 different configurations, right? You could have the management cluster drive and deploy to Leaf clusters, or you could have GitOps sets kind of installed onto each individual Leaf cluster, which personally, I would take that approach over, the management cluster kind of having, being the one to drive everything. But then from that point, right, like the GitOps sets is really useful for creating, especially the Flux customizations and Helm releases. And those controllers even further, that were shipped with a new sharding capability in the V2 release candidate that's coming out, or that did come out. And so really GitOps Sets scales really well, because especially if you're using it to drive Flux, and then Flux scales so well, it works really good. But I think there's some longer term work too, that if people are kind of using GitOps Sets in ways we didn't anticipate, that there would be some work we need to do to improve performance. But I expect it to be able to hold its own even right now.
Excellent. There is an audience member named James who's asking a question of Weaveworks James, which is, so with GitHub pipelines, can we GitOps pipelines, I assume, can we restrict which pipelines Kubernetes resources it can update on a team or user basis, as we're having independent namespaces for different use cases and want to limit time accidentally push pipelines being deployed to other team service namespaces? So I think what they're looking for is some degree of separation, right, or restriction between namespaces around the pipelines feature.
Yeah. So yes, and yes, the pipelines could be used that way, like via policy and stuff. But actually, the feature that would be even better for that is the team workspaces feature in Weave GitOps Enterprise. And so what that does is you can define kind of teams, what repos they have access to, what namespaces, which clusters they're allowed to deploy. And so then we can go ahead and what we do behind the scenes is kind of create the appropriate namespaces, the service accounts, the role bindings, but then we also dynamically create applicable policies as well to add that extra gating and guarding. So teams can't really step on each other, right? Because even if they were to kind of accidentally put the wrong namespace or something, those policies would block the deployment from even happening in the first place. And so really the Helm controller and customized controller from Flux would be the ones actively doing that. So, you know, while pipelines does drive Helm releases, it would be the Helm release controller and workspaces that are ultimately doing that work for you. But definitely possible, yeah.
Excellent. Another question that had popped in was, can the pipelines feature be used to deploy resources other than Kubernetes? Take that to mean like other Terraform managed things.
Yeah, so yes, with a small caveat. So right now the pipeline system is definitely used to drive the Helm releases. But we were talking about the Terraform controller as an example, right? So if you were to put those Terraform resources in a Helm chart, and then you could actually roll those changes out from environment to environment. And so that would be one way to do like non-Kubernetes resources. The one thing that would require is like valid Kubernetes YAML. So if you're trying to configure something like a GitHub action or something like that, like it would have to be, you know, through like Terraform HCL if there's a Terraform kind of module or provider for that. I hope that answered your question.
Excellent. Thank you. And another question here from James. With the Terraform provider, how is the state managed?
So the state is managed by default. It is managed by putting it in a config map or a secret. I forget which one off the top of my head. However, you can easily configure an external PVC to manage the state. And so it doesn't have to go into that, but it's pretty easy to configure, and it's in our documentation on how to do that.
Thanks to James for the great questions there. And you're welcome for the answer as well. Any other questions that we've got from the audience? We've got just a couple more minutes. Oh, we've got one here from Joseph. Since Weave GitOps has Helm and customized controller to render Kubernetes manifest, any idea if Weave will support OAM like what Kubevela is using?
Joseph, you got me. I have to be honest here. I do not know what OAM is. So I apologize. I can't answer that question directly. My guess is the Flux project will not add support for OAM, but there's something to say about the Flux. When they redid the architecture for version 2, they made it incredibly flexible and dynamic. And what I mean by that is, I would say the TF controller and the GitOps Sets controller and the pipeline controller are 3 great examples of that, where all 3 of those additional controllers are leveraging the Flux source controller and then doing their own unique work based on that. So in theory, if there was enough demand for an OAM controller, one could be built and you could get a very similar workflow with OAM as you would any of these other technologies. But there's nothing planned right now.
James is chiming in to add that he thinks OAM stands for the open application model, and provided a link to Kubevela that we will take a look at as well. And if we find that we misinterpreted the question, we'll certainly follow up in an email and give you some fresh information on that. Let's see. And Vladimir was just chiming in to also say that if he recalls correctly, state can be stored in TF Cloud as well for those manifests.
TF Cloud and TF Enterprise. Vladimir,
well.
Thanks for calling that out.
Yep, it's appreciated. All right, we'll give it just about 30 more seconds to see if there's any other questions that pour in here. There at the end of this slide deck that everybody's going to receive a link to in an email sometime tomorrow, you'll see some links and some resources here. Obviously, the YouTube link, let's see, could be. No, u2.be is actually just a strange link. I think that's accurate, but we'll double check that to make sure as well before we ship this out tomorrow. And thanks, Jeffrey, for calling that out. It usually catches my attention too, especially coming from a cybersecurity background. But there are some resources here. We encourage you to take a look at them, get a demo, watch a demo video, learn a little bit more about Assured. There's a great pricing page. I'm going to actually share that really quickly here. There is a great pricing page on our website at weave.works/pricing. It shows the community edition, Weave GitOps open source, Assured, the newest product that we're launching today, and Weave GitOps Enterprise, the fully loaded commercial solution, and gives you some information at a pretty granular level about what is included in each one of those. Encourage everybody to go and take a look at that page. And of course, go through our blog, check out our technical documents. We have a wealth of information and resources for people that are learning and working in this space. And obviously, we want to be incredibly helpful to everybody to the extent possible. We have also got a program called accelerators, and accelerators are like a time machine to move much faster and cover a lot of ground faster than probably anybody on this call thinks, by leveraging our smart people, our depth of capabilities and experience to help you move through this cloud modernization and cloud native journey much more quickly. So if you're struggling to figure out how to get your first app or your 10th app into Kubernetes and on AWS or somewhere else, we have accelerator packs that can help speed that process up and bring more resources to bear to help you do that more quickly, but also very safely, and using patterns that have been, tried, true, and tested over the last 8 to 10 years of our experience as well. So talk to us about the accelerator packs, talk to us about the new product called Assured, talk to us about the new features for Weave GitOps Enterprise. We really appreciate your time this afternoon and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks very much.